I'm about to share a story I never thought I'd post online, but after reading similar experiences, I feel compelled to put mine out there. It's about betrayal, heartbreak, and the satisfying sting of revenge. I've always tried to be the nice guy, but sometimes that only makes you an easy target. I once believed I'd spend my life with the woman who made me laugh more than anyone else. That woman was Sarah. She had a sense of humor and a spark that drew me in from the moment we met at a friend's party. For a while, we were inseparable, and I thought I'd finally found the person I was meant to grow old with. But everything changed when I discovered she'd been cheating on me before our wedding even took place. As if that wasn't enough, she ended up using the ring I bought for her to get engaged to her ex. Then, in a cruel twist, she blamed me for every disaster in her life. I met Sarah through mutual friends, and it felt like I'd known her for ages. We connected instantly over our shared love of cheesy horror movies and late-night diner runs. We'd stay up until sunrise talking about everything and nothing. At first, I was drawn to her carefree spirit. She seemed spontaneous and full of life. We started dating, and within a few months, I bought an engagement ring because I was convinced she was the one. People said I was moving too fast, but I ignored them. I was caught up in the whirlwind of what I believed was genuine passion. Sarah said yes, and for a while, I was on cloud nine. I never suspected she was meeting up with her ex in secret. I had no idea that while I was planning our wedding, she was busy rekindling a flame that should have stayed extinguished. I found out about her infidelity in the worst way. One night, about 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a call from an unknown number. This anonymous caller asked if I knew where Sarah was. I said I assumed she was at her apartment. He laughed and told me to check her phone records. I didn't recognize his voice, and I had no idea how he got my number, but something about his tone rattled me. After hanging up, I felt uneasy enough to do some digging. I managed to get into Sarah's phone log on our shared account and saw that she'd been exchanging late-night calls with a specific number. That same number had popped up multiple times, and each call lasted well over an hour. My stomach dropped when I realized she'd been in constant contact with her ex, a guy she claimed was ancient history. I confronted Sarah that same night. At first, she tried to brush it off as harmless. She said they were just catching up, that he was going through a tough time, and she was providing emotional support. But I wasn't born yesterday. Something in her eyes told me there was more to the story. I asked her why she never mentioned these calls before. She said she knew I'd react poorly, which meant she was already hiding something. I told her I wouldn't be able to marry her unless she came clean. She broke down crying, swearing that it was only emotional, not physical. Against my better judgment, I chose to believe her. Part of me was terrified of losing the future I'd built up in my mind. Part of me hoped it was just a stupid mistake she'd never repeat. Turns out, I was way off. We went ahead with the wedding, and I tried to push my doubts aside. The ceremony was small, attended mostly by family and close friends. Everyone thought we looked happy, but I had a nagging feeling that something was amiss. She barely met my gaze, and whenever we had a quiet moment, she seemed lost in thought. Still, I chalked it up to pre-wedding jitters and decided that once we were married, everything would settle. That was a joke. Within a month of our wedding, I started noticing little changes. She would stay late at work, but never had a believable explanation. She'd come home distant, moody, or sometimes weirdly euphoric. When I asked for details, I got half-truths and deflections. By the time we hit our 6-month anniversary, I finally got my hands on tangible proof that she was meeting her ex in hotel rooms. It broke me to see the evidence with my own eyes. I'd wanted so badly to believe she was just confused or struggling with the transition into marriage. I confronted her again, but this time, I didn't bother to ask for an explanation. I simply told her I wanted a divorce. She begged me to reconsider, sobbing that she loved me, that she'd made a terrible mistake. I demanded to know how long it had been going on, and she finally admitted it started before we tied the knot. She'd basically walked down the aisle while sleeping with another man. Feeling utterly betrayed, I moved out of our apartment that night. At first, I had no desire to humiliate her or get revenge. I only wanted to leave and never look back. But then, she made the next move that changed everything. A week after I moved out, she served me with separation papers full of outrageous demands. She wanted spousal support, a portion of my savings, and, to top it all off, she insisted she should keep the ring. Her justification was that she deserved it for emotional damages caused by our breakup. The audacity was mind-boggling. I tried reasoning with her, reminding her that she was the one who broke our vows. She didn't care. She was determined to squeeze as much money out of me as possible. That's when I caught wind that she was still with her ex, except now she was wearing my ring and posting pictures on social media. It felt like a giant middle finger aimed right at me. I realized at that moment that trying to be polite or civil was a waste of my time. I lawyered up. My attorney advised me to document everything. I started gathering all the evidence of her affair, including text messages, hotel receipts, and screenshots of her social media posts. The more I dug, the angrier I got. I discovered that her ex had a nasty habit of jumping from one relationship to the next whenever it suited him. He had money issues, and ironically, Sarah's plan was probably to get enough spousal support from me to keep him afloat. That realization fueled my determination to fight back. Instead of rolling over and accepting her demands, I made it clear that I'd see her in court. My lawyer helped me craft a strategy. If she wanted to be petty, I'd show her just how nasty things could get. I was done being a doormat. As the legal battle ramped up, she moved in with her ex. They flaunted their relationship all over social media, uploading pictures of them partying, dining out, and taking weekend trips. Sometimes she wore my ring in those pictures, which felt like a final twist of the knife. But I kept my cool. My lawyer told me not to engage publicly, not to post or comment on anything related to the case. Instead, we quietly compiled more evidence of her cohabitation and financial support of her new partner. This was crucial because it undermined her claim for spousal support. Meanwhile, I discovered something else. Her ex was on probation for a past fraud case, and there were rumors he was at it again. If these rumors were true, Sarah was tying herself to someone with a serious criminal track record. Things took an unexpected turn when her ex dumped her. Apparently, he got bored or found someone else. Not long after, photos of him with a different woman popped up on social media. Sarah was left alone and humiliated. She had paraded my ring around, bragged about leaving me for this amazing guy, and now he'd kicked her to the curb. That's when she turned around and started blaming me for everything. She claimed that if I had been a better husband, she wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. She told her friends and family that I was cold, unloving, and unsupportive. She painted herself as the victim of a neglectful partner. Even though most of our mutual friends knew the truth, some people fell for her sob story. It was infuriating to watch her shift the narrative so effortlessly. I was done playing the nice guy. With my lawyer's help, I filed a counterclaim that outlined all her cheating, her cohabitation with another man, and the emotional distress she'd caused me by dragging out this process. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about clearing my name and exposing her lies. I also prepared to call several witnesses, including a couple of her former friends who distanced themselves from her once they realized how manipulative she could be. Meanwhile, I kept living my life, showing up to work, saving every penny I could for the legal fees, and avoiding any direct contact with her. My anger was still there, simmering just beneath the surface, but I channeled it into building the strongest case possible. Finally, the day came for our court hearing. We sat on opposite sides of the courtroom, my lawyer on one side, hers on the other. She tried to maintain an air of innocence, but the evidence we presented was overwhelming. We had phone records, text messages, and witness statements. We had photos of her and her ex flaunting themselves while she was still legally married to me. Her lawyer attempted to argue that these were private matters and had no bearing on the divorce settlement, but the judge disagreed. The judge not only denied her spousal support request, but also ordered her to return the ring. She tried to argue that it was a gift, but in our state, engagement rings are considered conditional gifts that must be returned if the marriage ends due to the receiver's fault. That was just the beginning. The court also took into account her blatant disregard for marital fidelity and her attempts to defraud me financially. She ended up losing any claim to my savings, and I was granted a swift divorce. There was a moment when she looked at me with desperation in her eyes, as if she couldn't believe this was happening. She'd expected me to lie down and let her walk all over me. She'd thought she could twist the narrative and come out on top, but the truth was finally laid bare, and the judge saw right through her manipulations. In the end, she left the courtroom empty-handed. carrying only her bruised ego. I'd like to say I felt pity for her in that moment, but I didn't. I felt relieved, vindicated, and yes, a little smug. But I wasn't finished. I'd gotten my legal victory, but she had spent months dragging my name through the mud. She'd told anyone who would listen that I was abusive or neglectful. Even after losing in court, she tried to spin the story on social media, claiming the legal system was biased, that she'd been tricked. I decided to publicly share the court documents, which were a matter of public record. I posted them online along with a concise statement of facts. I didn't rant or call her names. I simply let the evidence speak for itself. People were shocked when they saw how much she'd lied. Her remaining supporters started to back away. She lashed out at me, calling me petty, but I felt no remorse. If she wanted to play dirty, she should have expected to get dirty. Over the next few months, I focused on rebuilding my life. I switched jobs, moved to a different neighborhood, and began reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during my toxic marriage. The healing process was slow, but every day I felt a bit lighter. Occasionally, I'd hear rumors about Sarah. She'd lost a lot of social capital, had trouble finding a stable job, and was dealing with a string of short-lived relationships. People told me she sometimes complained that I had ruined her life. I never responded. I figured my silence was the best way to handle it. Deep down, I felt satisfied knowing she couldn't shift the blame this time. Her downfall was entirely of her own making, and everyone knew it. One day, she reached out to me directly. I received a long email from her, claiming she'd found God and wanted to make amends. She wrote that she was sorry for what she'd done, but also insisted that I had played a role in pushing her away. She hinted that I owed her a chance at reconciliation, that maybe we could start fresh now that we'd both grown. I read her words and felt no sympathy. This was the same woman who'd lied, cheated, and humiliated me. She'd tried to rob me blind and tarnish my reputation. Forgiveness was never on the table. I deleted her email without replying, and I blocked her on every platform where she might try to contact me. I was done. Over time, I started dating again. It wasn't easy letting someone new into my life, but I took it slow. I was transparent about my baggage, making sure I didn't project my old wounds onto a fresh relationship. My new partner was understanding and patient, traits I realized I needed more than fiery passion. We built something healthier and more stable than I'd ever experienced. I found myself actually enjoying the small moments, the quiet evenings, and honest conversations that never left me second-guessing. In the background, Sarah's drama continued, but it no longer mattered to me. My focus had shifted toward a future that no longer involved her at all. However, I'd be lying if I said I never thought about revenge beyond the courtroom victory. There were times I fantasized about exposing every detail of her deceit to anyone who still believed her. But in the end, I realized the best revenge was living well. She wanted to see me broken, living in misery, but I was thriving. My career was on track, my personal life was better than ever, and I had a newfound sense of self-worth. If there was one final act of vengeance, it was simply refusing to give her any more power over my emotions. Every time she tried to contact me, she ran into a dead end. Every rumor she spread was met with skepticism because I had already proven her a liar. The satisfaction I got from knowing that was immeasurable. So here I am, sharing my story for anyone who might be going through something similar. When you've been betrayed, it's natural to want closure or retribution. I won't pretend I took the moral high road at every turn. I fought tooth and nail to protect myself and expose the truth. And I don't regret it. Sometimes, you have to stand up for yourself against people who assume they can manipulate you without consequences. My ex-wife learned the hard way that actions have repercussions. If I could offer any advice, it would be this: gather your evidence, know your legal rights, and don't let shame keep you silent. You might be surprised how much you can accomplish when you stop playing the role of the victim. I'm living proof that revenge, when executed with careful planning, can be downright liberating. Even now, years after the divorce was finalized, people occasionally ask me if I ever forgave her. The simple answer is no. I moved on, but I didn't grant her absolution. Some might say that holding on to resentment is toxic, but I don't see it that way. I transformed the anger into motivation, using it to remind myself of what I will and will not tolerate in any relationship. Whenever I recall how she betrayed me, it reinforces my resolve to be honest in my own dealings and to demand honesty from those around me. I don't wish her harm, but I also don't wish her well. She is just someone I used to know, someone who revealed the worst parts of herself long after I had already committed to a life together. In a way, her betrayal was the catalyst for my personal growth. I discovered my inner strength when I was forced to defend my dignity and finances against her selfish scheme. That journey taught me resilience and boosted my self-esteem in the long run. I share this story as a testament to the fact that no matter how bleak things look, you can come out on the other side stronger and wiser. If my experience resonates with you, let it serve as a reminder that you are not powerless. You do not have to accept blame that isn't yours, and you certainly don't have to forgive someone who has never truly earned it. It's okay to walk away with your head held high and your spine intact. For me, that was the ultimate form of revenge, showing her that she didn't break me. Instead, her betrayal became the turning point that launched me into a better life. I'm grateful for my current blessings, a supportive partner, a stable job, and the freedom to spend my days free from drama. I hope my story inspires anyone who feels trapped in a cycle of betrayal. You deserve more than apologies that don't mean anything. You deserve real respect, and if that respect isn't given, you have every right to walk away without looking back. Remember, life is too precious to waste on toxic people.